Welcome to the Rhonda Grant Show with your host, Rhonda Grant. If you believe that there is more to life than what you see right now and you want to find out more, listen in as her guests share their journey and their extraordinary experiences. Now, here is your host, Rhonda Grant.
I'd like to welcome to the show Johnnie Williams, author of the Broken Wheel series and a 3-time recipient of the Plume Award. Welcome to the show, Johnnie.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to meet you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Can you let the audience know a little bit about where you grew up, went to school, that type of thing, so we get to know you a little better?
Yes, I grew up in Tampa, Florida, and I graduated from Brandon High School.
Nice. And what inspired you to start writing poetry, where if you've produced three books from?
Yes. Well, I still don't really consider myself a writer or a poet, but I started simply because I had something to say and I didn't know how to say it. So I just started putting words together and it kind of just flowed out of me. And I figured, if it had helped me so much, so I figured it might, be important to help someone else.
Mm-hmm. And so what was your process like for writing? Because I know writers have different processes. And so when you sat down to write with pen and paper, did you just start writing things down on paper and then they started to have form and shape? Or did it come to you as an idea and then you went to pen and paper?
Well, it started off, I would just kind of jot down things on my notepad in my phone. And, I just kind of would go back and slowly put them together. And then sometimes it would just come, a whole poem would come at one time. So it was kind of a mixture, but I just always kept my phone handy and I just would jot a line or two down and then I would just piece it together that way.
And so would you be working, doing some things, and this would come to you and you'd have to grab your phone and record it? Because we all know as writers, if you don't capture that and record it, it's really hard to go back and try and remember what that was. Is that what happens to you?
Well, kind of, sort of. So I'm retired. So
Yes.
I spend most of my time at home. So a lot of my ideas would just, I would be sitting on the couch watching TV and then something would pop into my head and I would kind of just go along with that train of thought. Or if I was driving or doing something, like I said, I would keep my phone handy so I could jot down a quick line or two. That way I can keep the idea in my head. And that's just kind of the way it just always hit me. I always had to have that phone. So like you said, when it hit me, I was able to write something down if I needed to jog my memory later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a lot of people, I know myself as a writer, I would have ideas and write them down. And sometimes if I just went to the computer and started to write, things would just start to flow from me. And sometimes I had a hard time keeping up with what was coming and what needed to be recorded. And I think that people, there's a lot of writers right now at home that are wondering if their process is the right way to write. And I think that many people have different ways of how they tackle this. There's some writers who, they get up in the morning, some authors, they get up in the morning, they have their breakfast, they watch television for a while, and then they go to work and they work for a specific period of time because they're career writers. That's what they do. And I find is that it's best that I have not been interrupted. My brain has not been interrupted with anything that morning in order for me to do my best work. So I'm curious about other writers And I'm sure the audience is curious too, because there's going to be writers at home, as I said, that wonder if their process is a correct process. So what would you say to that if somebody said, is my process, is it going to get me published?
Well, I would tell them firstly that there's no correct process. I mean, whatever you do to get the words out of you, that just go with it naturally and just let it flow. Like you said, I would wake up sometimes in the morning and I would just write some stuff down. I would have a notepad next to me on the rare occasion that it did come right after I woke up. So I would always have a notepad next to my bed, but usually my inspiration usually hit about midday.
Mm-hmm.
When I was just, relaxing. I wouldn't have the TV on. I would be, playing some music and just kind of relaxing. And then it would just hit me and I would
Mm-hmm.
just go with it. But, there's no correct process. Everybody's brains work differently. So, I mean, whatever your process is, just go with it. And then you can always go back and refine it at a later time.
Right. Sure. And so have you dreamed of words or sentences or paragraphs or ideas and then woke up and wrote them in the middle of the night, or mistakenly didn't write it down and then it wasn't there in the morning?
Yes, that's actually happened quite a few times. I would dream of something and I would remember it. And as soon as I woke up, I would have to write it down, because if I didn't write it down as soon as I got up, I would forget it. And then I would try to remember it throughout the rest of the day. And like you said, it would be gone. So yeah, it would hit me sometimes in dreams. Usually, like I said, it's more so midday. So I would always try to clear my mind when I'm sleeping so that wouldn't happen, or I can lessen the possibility of it happening. But it did happen on rare occasion, and it's not a good feeling because it was. I'm pretty sure it was some good stuff.
It was some really good stuff. Yes. Yeah. It may come back to you. Gary Lockman, who I've also interviewed on the show, he's a writer, and not his last book, but the book before that I interviewed him was called Dreaming Ahead of Time. And so I think a lot of people do that. They dream words, they dream melodies and words to songs. I've done that and made the mistake of, I'll remember that in the morning, and I never was able to capture that song again. And I think that's what that dreaming ahead of time is, or precognitive dreaming, where you're dreaming your book, whether it's a novel, whether it's nonfiction, whether it's poetry, but you're dreaming your book. And it's like you're getting gifted from somewhere, we don't know where, to fill in and round out the book. And that is very exciting.
Yes, yes, it is. Like you said, where it's come when you find out that you don't really know where it's coming from, that's the place where you do your best writing, because you're not really thinking about putting the words together. They just flow out of you, and you just, when you look at a page and you see all the words come together, and it's like, oh wow, that's beautiful, that's inspirational. And it's like you said, you don't know where it comes from, but you know where it comes from.
Yes.
It's one of those feelings like, did I really do this?
I know.
Like, this is leagues beyond where I think I'm at, but apparently this is where I'm at.
Yeah, and a lot of artists will attest to that, as and I think that, when we commit ourselves to something like writing, is that, all of a sudden it opens up to you. And then when that opens up to you, then more things open up to you. And so how long did it take? Like, what point did you say to yourself, gee, I think I have something here that I could publish? Like, when did that feeling come to you?
So I kind of work backwards. I've known for a long time that I wanted to write. I just didn't know how. So when I started, I just kind of just opened my mind and opened my heart and then just let the words flow out. Uh, I I published my first book in 2021, I believe
Hmm.
it was. And that took me about a year to actually get it to where I felt comfortable actually having it published. And then after that my first book was published, I actually wrote 3 books the next year.
Oh,
So
oh,
yeah, so I had a lot to say, and like I said, I kind of became a hermit almost
oh, yes.
because I had to kind of tune everything out
Right.
to find my process. And once it started going, like I say, 3 books in a year. 2 of them were poetry, and one is kind of my autobiography almost.
Okay. Hmm.
So it was a process,
Hmm.
but it was a beautiful process nonetheless.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, and I think that a lot of writers will say that's the writer's journey, is there's a lot of isolation in the art of writing. And, people have similar processes that they go through, and then others have different processes. They make an appointment with time and show up. And then there's other people like me, is that time doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter what I'm doing. If there's creative information coming, it's coming, and it's coming now. So I have to
Mhm.
be prepared for that. So I carry a notebook. I don't record on my phone, but I do carry a notebook. And even if I can write down the major part of what's coming in, I can usually reconstruct it on the back.
Mhm.
Do you find that your poetry, I mean, your first book, let's go to your first book. Do you find that in writing that poetry that you were sort of cleansing your soul, yourself, and laying down experiences that they just needed to land somewhere on a page? And if it could
Mhm.
help somebody or not, it just seemed to be that's what you needed to do, not knowing that you were going to write another book and do different things. So can you talk to us about that? Because people also want to know, what should I write first? You know, if I want to write two different things on two different subjects, what should I do first? And then did you find, when you found that that's what you needed to do in order to advance to other
Yes,
material?
yes, I did. So my first book was, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. I just know I had to do it. I had
Do it.
something to
Yeah.
say.
Hmm.
So my first book is kind of, it's all over the place. I was just when something hit me, I wrote it. And so yeah, it was, in a way, it was soul cleansing, but it also gave me direction on where I
Mm.
wanted to go. Because when I wrote my first book, I thought that was it.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote my first book and I was like, okay, I'm finally done. This is it. And so while I was waiting for the publishing, I actually finished my next book because I I had more to say. So, it opened up a door for me to kind of get everything out and do it in a way, an artistic way,
Hmm.
to where I could say what I wanted to say, or I could hide it in behind different words. So for
Right.
me, it was very therapeutic.
Hmm. And so when you were done the second book, what happened?
So when I finished the second book, I actually, when I submitted that for publishing, I had already started on my third book. Because, like I said, I have everything, written down on a notepad. So as soon as I submitted that second manuscript, I started, jotting down more ideas. So it's kind of a continuation. It's a journey almost from the first book to the third book, but really they were just in preparation of me writing my autobiography, because as I said, I didn't know what I was doing. So they were kind of stepping stones for me to get to where I felt comfortable actually writing my own story.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Very, very interesting. When I finished my book, nothing else came to me. Nothing. That was it. And
I mean,
until
it
until this year. Then what happened is I started to be inspired by certain things. And the more inspired I was, the more I saw that I had a journey within a journey when I wrote my book. And so then I started to write about the journey that I had. And so I would get up each morning and I would write. And I don't know, it just came through me, and I just wrote and turned the pages over and wrote. I didn't go to typewriter this time, or computer. I've aged myself. And so I wrote and wrote. And then I would put a staple in it, turn it over. I wouldn't even look at it. I didn't look at it. The next day I did the same thing, and I did this for 4 days in a row. I never looked at anything, and it stopped. But the book has not been fully written. But I stopped. Nothing else came to me. And so I didn't write anything more. And then, about 6 weeks after that, I took a look at the first chapter and I typed it out. And I thought to myself, this is really good stuff. And then that was it. So the reason I'm telling that story is because, people might have had that happen to them, where they wrote and then it goes cold. The information goes cold, and you think, okay, well, I thought I was writing a book, but I'm not. But see, here's the thing with writing. It takes a lot of patience. Don't you agree?
Yes. Extreme patience.
With yourself.
Yes, you have to allow yourself to make mistakes.
Yes.
And you have to know that it'll be finished once you know it's finished. If you feel like you've hit a block and you can't write anymore, just stop. Because it will come back, but you don't want to force it.
Yes.
When you force it, that's when you make more mistakes and you get frustrated that you don't have that same passion that you had when you first started writing.
That's really good advice. And I think that there's a lot of writers that may have a manuscript that's sitting around and they need to do something. They should do something with it. It takes a lot of courage, doesn't it, to publish a book?
Yes, it's scary. It's very scary.
It's scary. It takes a lot of courage. And at any point, did you think, maybe I'll use a pen name? I won't use my name.
No, I didn't want to use a pen name because it felt generic to me. And this is just me personally. My writing is very significant to my style, and it's a lot of what I write is about some of my personal experiences, and it's from my heart.
Yes.
So I wanted. It's not that I wanted people to know it was me, but I wanted my son specifically to know that this came from his dad, because he inspired a lot of it. He's one of my biggest inspirations.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And so he'd be very proud of you then.
Yes.
For sure. Yes, he'd be very proud of you for sure. And so you've got 3 books, do you?
4.
You've written,
Four.
oh, you've written 4
Four.
books. I can't count. So you've written 4 books because you
Yeah.
have your autobiography, right?
Yeah.
And do you think there's a 5th one?
I kind of hit that block.
Mm-hmm.
So I keep my phone with me, you know, just to jot some stuff down. I have about half a book written now,
You? Okay.
but you know, I know it's not done, and this may be the last one. It may not. But again, like I said, I'm not trying to force it until I feel like it's ready to be released.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I'm keeping number 5 kind of in the cupboard.
In the cupboard, yeah. And so your first 3 are poetry,
Yes, yes,
and then your 4th one is an autobiography,
yes.
and your 5th one, did you go back to poetry or?
It's gonna be poetry. So funny thing, the 5th
Uh-huh.
one it is gonna be poetry, but I'm also kind of thinking about doing a self-help kind of psychology 101 type of book. I don't really know how I want to format that one. So I haven't even started on it.
Yes.
But it's up here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when you were in school, when you look back over your time at school, was there any indications along the way that you were going to be a writer?
Uh no. Um
You didn't win any writing contests. You didn't.
I did in
You
my
did.
early schooling.
Yes.
Once I hit about junior
Mhm.
high school, um, it was gone. It was gone. I had no interest in it.
You were focused on other things.
Yes, it
Yes.
kind of it kind of my focus shifted more towards athletics.
Yes.
And then when I graduated, before I graduated, actually, excuse me, I had already enlisted in the army.
Uh-huh.
So writing kind of just went out the window because I kind of had my life plan set. Well, the next part of my life plan set.
Yes. Hmm. And when you enlist in the army, that you don't get a whole lot of free time, do you?
No, no, you don't. So it would have made it kind of hard to write, but I did log all of my experiences in my brain. So when I
Mhm.
went back and did my autobiography, I was able to incorporate a lot of things that I experienced into my autobiography to make it fuller.
Wonderful. Okay. And so did you go on any missions?
Well, I was stationed in Iraq, and while in Iraq, I was actually injured shortly a few months into my tour.
Mhm.
So I was medically discharged after my injury.
Okay. Hmm. And then you had time to basically unwind and think about the last 5 or 6 years.
I did and I didn't.
Uh-huh.
So as you can imagine, it was a very traumatic experience.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
only 20 years old when I got
Mm.
injured. So there was a lot of mischief involved, and the next 10 years kind of got away from me. I didn't really have a direction, but I knew, even then I knew that I was gonna have a story because of the things I had already went through.
Mhm.
So I actually started writing my autobiography in 2007. So it's been a journey from there to going to poetry. Like I said, I had something to say, but I didn't know how to say it. And so my autobiography was supposed to be first, and then the poetry would kind of been afterwards. But like I said, I worked backwards. So it was just the way that it was easier for me, and I felt comfortable getting everything out.
Hmm. Well, and you went with what you were feeling instead of saying, no, it's got to be the autobiography. I got to set this other stuff aside. And that's surrendering to the process, right? Is saying, this is what I want to do, but this seems to be, bothering me that I need to record this information first and then just going with it. A lot of people would not do that. They'd say, no, I'm writing the book, and they'd ignore the other gifts that are there because they are, they just have a one track mind on what they want to do. So, yeah, you're versatile. I mean, you're open to the suggestions that you're giving yourself, really. You know what I mean? Like when things turn, you just kind of turn and go with that. And then knowing that you still have time to go back and do the other things that you want to do. You're listening to Courting Your Soul with Rhonda Grant, whose podcast has been treated with digital audio health by my sponsor, Symatrex. And today I have the great pleasure of interviewing Johnnie Williams. Johnnie, please let the audience know how they may purchase your books and how to reach out to you.
Yes, so you can purchase my books at www.brokenwheelbooks.com, or you can go to Writers Republic Bookshop.com, or you can go to DorancePublishing.com, or you can purchase them at anywhere books are sold, or Amazon, any online resellers. And you can reach me on my social medias. My Facebook is Johnnie Williams, and I don't have an Instagram, unfortunately, luckily, but
Both.
I do have a TikTok account, and that's Johnnie Ringo.
And what account is that?
That is TikTok.
Oh, a TikTok account. Okay, you just faded out there at the TikTok. And so you've won awards for your compositions.
Yes.
Yes, tell us about that.
Well, they were totally unexpected.
Yes.
When the publishers contacted me and told me about it initially, I was blown away. I knew what I had it was significant to me.
Yes.
But I didn't know how much weight it will hold with others. And so when they told me about it, I mean, I kind of almost shied away from it. But when they told me about the award and they explained to me the significance of it, I just kind of, I was floored. And then when they gave them to me successively for each book, I mean, I get choked up a little just talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so meaningful. Even today, I got a call from one of the supervisors at my publishing company, and he was telling me he actually read over the book and how much it meant to him. And I mean, it's just been an amazing journey just to go from, being relatively pretty much unknown to writing to just even having the little bit of exposure that I do have and that I have garnered. I mean, it's a fantastic feeling.
So how many awards have you won?
Well, just the three. My first one, my first book didn't get any recognition really from the company because, like I said, it was just kind of a roadmap and it was all over the place. But my next three all got the same award.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations. You're very humble. And it's so encouraging when you get an award for your book. I mean, it encourages you as an author. It encourages your art. right?
Yes.
And it gives you the courage to, when you get ideas for another book, you go, yeah, like I'm just going to keep going with this, right?
Yes.
Some people have like 25 books that they've written. And some people, like I've interviewed Dr. Joel Bryant from North Carolina a couple of times on my show, and he's published 25, but he has a lot more there that he could publish, and probably double. And that's what he does, is he writes. He writes for his life. What extraordinary discoveries have you found in your life? Or actually, what extraordinary discovery have you found in your life?
Well, I found that I had been through a lot of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and I found a closer relationship to God,
Mm-hmm.
and I found my compassion. I found a way to deal with my issues and quell my anger that I didn't know I had been dealing with for decades.
Mm-hmm.
So it helped me to get through the days because it was so relaxing, and it allowed me to say the things that I needed to say and I wanted to say so badly, but because of fear of being judged or being looked at as different, I was able to get all of that out of me and focus on what was really important in my life rather than the things that hurt me the most. I found that as humans, we all tend to do that, hold on to the things
Yeah.
that hurt us, and we don't really get a chance to enjoy the things that we love the way we want to.
Mm-hmm.
So it made it easier for me to make a connection with others because of what I had gone through.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a really good lesson, Johnnie, to people that are at home, listening to this or driving in a vehicle. Sometimes when we've been hurt in our childhood and along the way, a lot of people have a hard time moving past that. And we just keep the reel rolling in our brain all the time until we find a new way, hopefully, find a new way and to find some happiness in life, right? Because we carry, some of us and some people, and will relate to this, is that you're carrying a burden of what other people have done to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta put it down. You just have to lay that down somewhere, whether you get help for it or talk to people that are close with you that can help listen and to listen to you and to help you through some things. But I've heard that a lot of really good things come from the letting go. And it seems like your art has just exploded for you.
Yes, yes. It's bright in my days. That's for sure. That's for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
And from the people who have gotten my books, uh, they told me that it really touched them because it's so relatable.
Mm-hmm.
And the experiences between the words, it kind of points us to that inner child almost,
Yes.
that a lot of, like you said, a lot of us hold on to that hurt and we don't know what to do with it because
You
we're
don't know
afraid
it.
people will say.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been the one to shy away from confrontation, so when I did it, I was unafraid
Mm-hmm.
because I knew what was at the end of the journey, and that's where I wanted to go.
Beautiful. Do you feel that you've been called to your journey, crafted it, or a bit of both?
A bit of both.
Yes.
A bit of both. I knew once what I wanted to do was taken away from me, I knew that I had something to fall back on. But I was kind of fighting myself because I didn't want to do what I knew I should have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a lot of us that do that because rather than actually live our lives, we just try to make a living. And so I was almost forced into this, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. So yes, I believe I was called to do it, but by refining my craft and allowing myself to make those mistakes, I think this is really what I'm meant to do.
Mm-hmm. And so, do you feel that there were pointers in your life that was always pointing you to this moment in time where you can say that you're a published author, not only of one, but four, and working on your fifth? And when you look back and see the trials and tribulations that you went through and were able to heal or overcome those things, do you feel that it was always pointing you in the direction of being an author?
So strange thing, I started, like I said, I started writing in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it wasn't until I actually went to a psychic
Oh,
that told me I was going to publish multiple books. And at the time, I was kind of like, oh, well, I probably do. I won't get one done. This is a
I've
problem.
wasted my money.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like, all right, but it was always in the back of my head. And when, like
Yeah.
I said, hit the first one, the next three were just they all just came. So I was shocked, really, how
Yeah.
fast the words came out. And I as far as throughout my life, I didn't notice anything pointing me towards this
Mm-hmm.
until I actually went back and I saw a reading that my mom had done on me and my sibling when we were younger. And at the bottom, it said possible careers. And one of the three possible careers that was listed was a writer. So apparently it's been there since I was a kid, and I just
Uh-huh.
know it until now.
Isn't that remarkable?
It
So your
is.
mom had one of the three possible things, and then a psychic also told you.
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
that was a really good psychic.
Yeah.
People pay a lot of money
She
for a
was.
psychic like that.
She was. She
Yeah.
was. I mean, it's just been. I mean, like I said, it's been an amazing journey.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, just, I mean, everything I've gone through and everything I've experienced, it's led me to this point. And now that I've accepted it, it feels like I'm home.
Yeah.
And every day is just beautiful, and each day is getting better and better.
Wonderful. And you're such a young man and you've got your whole life ahead of you. And so that's just wonderful. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show, Johnnie, and to know more about you and your process. And, we don't realize that we inspire others. And your inspiration is huge for other people right now who are thinking that, thinking for clues maybe in their background that is going to lead them to be an author, or whatever it's going to lead them to be, right? And so I thank you so much for being on the show. It's been quite a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, Rhonda. I mean, it's been super exciting. I'm just glad that you took the time out your day to have me on your show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Theme song for Courting Your Soul is Sun on the Water, composed and performed by John Park Wheeler.